the 286th episode of the CloudFocus Weekly for the second week of July 2018. This episode is shortly titled Corporate GTD Summer Series Part 1. I'm your host, Part 1, Jason Atwood, and joining me, co-host, Part 2, is Justin Elstein. Justin, how are you doing today?
The better part.
So many jokes to insert at this point in the conversation, which will not be done. How are you? I just asked you and you didn't answer.
All right. I'm staring up at some weird thing in the ceiling.
If you're talking about
what is that?
A rungu, an African fighting mechanism, or
we have
whatever.
one of those stuck in the ceiling.
Yeah. So we are back in Studio 1A. Studio A. And the air conditioning is pounding, and so I have taken a towel and a rungu and stuffed it into it. So the rungu is like a big...
the rungu is intended for, I imagine, when they invented it.
Yes. Way
back when. They were like, one day, people will take a dirty towel and stuff it in a ceiling using this thing.
A rungu. Why wouldn't you?
It's like Roomba, rungu.
Rungu, yes. So that's another story.
That
might fall.
That made
at
me
some
laugh.
point.
And if it does fall, I will laugh even harder. So it'll probably fall on you.
It's not gonna fall on either one of us. I'll just move my laptop over here a little bit.
Yeah, just a smidge.
Just a smidge. Move it on over. All right. So we have a summer series we're gonna do again this year. Every week we're going to talk about a different topic of GTD. We're trying not to cover ones we did last year. We did a bunch last year. 4 episodes?
4,
which were great.
4 big-time episodes.
We did things on weekly review. We did things on what is GTD.
Capture.
We did capture. So we figured we'd pick a couple. It's been a year. So we're going to talk about it today in this episode. On each episode, by the way, it's going to be a little bit shorter. So we're going to keep them around 20 to 25 minutes. No picks. Our pick every week is read the book or get OmniFocus, or read the book and get OmniFocus. And if you want to learn about GTD from a big picture, there are 100 episodes. Literally, we have one whole episode just talking about GTD. We have another one. So in terms of that, this is more of, hey, you've listened to that. Now we're going to get into sort of deeper subjects. And I will say I've been listening to a lot of GTD podcasts recently, and some of them I think have given me some ideas, but I think there's a lot of topics that people don't dig into, right? They don't really go deeper on stuff. For example, one of the ones that could be possibly in our summer series is getting on and off the wagon, or getting back on the wagon. That could be. But today, we're going to talk about corporate GTD. So again, start with, you should know what GTD is at this point.
We're going to take this already exciting topic called GTD, and then we're going to put the word corporate in front of it and make it way more exciting.
I guess we could call it organizational GTD.
Whatever.
But then it sounds like you're organizing your productivity, and it's too much. So why don't I start? Do you want to ask me? You want us to talk? We just like ramble? Kind of tough, because we got to get into this.
We'll get into it.
All right. So what does corporate GTD mean to you?
Well, it means to me what we've done at our corporation. So GTD is it's not just a thing that some people do and some people don't do. It's a part of our culture. So I think once something becomes a part of the corporate culture, it is then like taken as, all right, this is the way things are done here. So whenever a new employee comes on board at Arkus, we have them go through an onboarding process, and as part of that onboarding process, GTD is a big part of it.
We do call it the Arkus Boot Camp.
Arkus Boot Camp,
yeah.
ABC for short.
It's easy as ABC. It's just easy.
Sure, it's simple. And I mean, one of the first things that we have people do is get going on reading GTD, reading the blog posts, listening to our previous podcasts about GTD, so that they can become part of the corporate culture that we've developed around how we are productive. And a lot of the ways that we are productive and a lot of the ways that we communicate internally with each other have vernacular that's kind of baked in GTD theories, if you will. Right? Like, it's not often that you will ask someone to do something at Arkus and either you haven't said by when you need it, or the person won't come back to you and say, when do you need that by?
Yep.
And that's a kind of a key principle in the idea of GTD, of capturing the fact that you have to do something and when you need to do it by, and then getting it off your head and knowing that you've put it somewhere and it's in your trusted space. And that trusted space is, for us, equal across the board, right? We all use tools at Arkus. We all use the same standardized set of tools to manage our GTD practices, which vary. Like, not everyone does everything the same way, but everyone does practice GTD.
Yeah, I think I would even go back to where it started from, which was the three founders practice GTD. We all practice differently. I was definitely more on the longer side of it, but as we started, when we had three people, we all practiced GTD. So kind of starting the organization, it's like, oh, we're all GTD people. Then as we hired the first people on, we kind of made the decision, well, I think they should practice GTD. And I remember the first couple of people, it was semi-optional. It was kind of like, hey, GTD is nice, and here's why. And I like to talk about the why. But you don't necessarily have to do it exactly this way or with this tool. And as we've grown, we realized there are certain things that, as a corporation, you want to let people have choices about, right? And in fact, one of our big policies at Arkus is it's a very open organization in terms of you choose a lot of what you want to do. We have a results-oriented work environment. You can work from anywhere, from anytime you want. Like, there's a lot of, like, take the vacation you want. There's a lot of openness. But then part of it is there's structure, right? There's pillars of Arkus, and one of them is this productivity methodology, GTD, and that you're going to use the tool set that we decided, and through lots and lots of years have decided is sort of the best way to go about it. You can handle it different ways. You can manage it different ways, but here's the tool set. And just like giving someone an email client, just like giving someone just like giving someone a laptop, you get a phone, like you get these things as an employee. But it also, and I struggled with is it too much to tell people they have to use this tool to do this productivity? But now I realize it makes it easier to help others. So if someone's struggling with GTD and they go, well, I'm using to-do lists and I'm using paper and I'm using some other tool, and we're like, well, that's hard for me to help somebody. If you come to me and say, I'm using the tool you guys use, I can help you because I've been using that tool for 10 years.
And it's not just you, it's anyone.
Right.
That's the thing. It's part of the culture. So if you're having trouble with, how should I handle this type of recurring task, or how should I handle this type of responsibility that I have that I need to do every so often, anyone can chime in and say, here's how I would do that, or here's how I would do that. Almost like being a Salesforce consultant, right? There's not always like the right answer, but there's the here's how I might solve that, or here's how I would solve that.
But if I said, where do you track your prospects, you wouldn't say, I put them in this thing called assets.
Right.
Like,
No.
right. No, they're leads. And then, how do I convert a lead? You don't have 17 ways of converting leads. You have one way of converting leads. And so in some ways, having that structure is important. I would kind of like to go into the why and what's the benefit? Like, what is the benefit? So why don't you start by telling me, what do you think the benefit of having a corporation, an organization, let's use organization, as a whole, adopt something that is, a productivity methodology? Like, what's the benefit? What names the benefit you've seen?
I like that people speak the same language. So when the expectations around, when you are talking amongst your peers here at Arkus, you're all on pretty much a level playing field when it comes to how things are going to be turned around, right? And how you're thinking about the ways to solve problems. Because with GTD, you don't just get, a productivity methodology that, the art of stress-free productivity, you also start to think a little differently about how to break things down.
Give me an example.
Or
What's a
how
way
to
to
do
think
something.
different?
So again, I kind of always go back to the example of people communicating with one another in specific ways. So I always will tell someone when they first start working, like, hey, if somebody asks you to do something, and I'll go back to this example I used like 5 minutes ago, but if somebody asks you to do something and they don't tell you by when they need it, sort of a fail on them, but don't let them like fail. Say, sure, I can do that, but when do you need it done by? And while that seems like, oh, that's common sense stuff, that is kind of baked in to GTD, right? Because you need to understand when you need to deliver something to somebody. What is my next action to get me towards delivering that thing? Because ultimately I have to get it to them by whenever they said that they needed it by, or I have to say, I can't.
So let me jump on that.
Go
and
ahead.
Say that's one of my best examples of that GTD in an organization I think has sort of transformed the way we work. First of all, we work in a very it's a difficult thing to be a consultant, and all those consultants out there, you're all nodding your head, and all the people who haven't been consultants, it's difficult. It's a lot of moving parts, and in some ways, giving someone a productivity methodology is saying, here's a tool to handle all the moving parts. But the example I'll give, and I won't use names, although that person probably wouldn't mind, but I remember approaching an employee the other day and saying, maybe a couple weeks ago, and I said, I would like you to take on this other project, right? I have something I want you to do. And the response I got, I'm trying to keep it gender neutral, from Astro. There we go. Astro responded and said, I'll let you know after I do my week review this week. And first of all, mind blew. Like, wow. But that's the perfect thing. And we'll get to that if we do an episode on commitments, maybe. But like, there's that piece of not only that person just say yes or no, I can or cannot. They knew enough to say, I can't tell you whether I can take that on because I need to go through the process of evaluating all the things that I have. And the weekly review, as we've talked about, is one of the hardest things in GTD to get. It's also the hardest thing to stay on and to keep doing. But using that as a way of, I need to go back. I need to go through this process that I do weekly to evaluate all I have in my bucket, to look at everything and to put it in front of me and to make decisions and make next actions about all that. And it's only after that period that I'll be able to, after I've done that I'll be able to say whether or not I can take on that task. And saying that to one of the owners of the companies, again, you might say if someone approached you. I mean, when we worked for the companies that shall not be named and the CEOs that shall not be named came to us and said something, I don't think I'd say, you know what, I'll let you know. Next week if I could do that.
Yeah, but the only difference is you could say sure, and then they just didn't care.
Right. Well, so that's the point. Understanding that and knowing that the week review. The other example I'll give you that I think is a great corporate, is a thing that can help out a corporation. Maybe I'll give two more examples. One is a 2-minute rule. So taking the 2-minute rule, which is that if you can do it in 2 minutes, instead of capturing it, writing it down like I'm going to do this thing, if you can do it in under 2 minutes, just do it. Just do it then. It's a very simple and easy thing to teach people, from little people to big people, and it's very powerful because it stops that kind of that, oh, okay, I'll get back to you, or I'll do. It's like, no, just send the email, just make the phone call, just do it quickly. And I think it gets people to do all the smaller things. And sometimes you add up all those 2-minute things. I think that helps tremendously in an organization. That's something that I've noticed. And then lastly, I think the biggest change I've seen at Arkus, or just working in an organization. Again, we worked in organizations, 390,000 people, I think, as big as that company got at the time. That's the number I always throw out. Well, I worked at a corporation that had 390,000 employees. And what we knew is we'd go to meetings and we'd send emails to people. And there's just, you would know that Sally down the hall was great. You send her an email, she's on it. She would respond to you, she'd do it, and you never have to follow up with her again. You send an email to Bob Boberson, and Bob would never get back to you. You literally have to print out the email and go stick it under his front desk or on his desk to be like, hey, I sent you this. You'd have to follow up with Bob. You'd then have to go talk to Bob's manager. Hey, Bob doesn't get back to me. I invited Bob to these 2 meetings and he never showed up. And then Bob comes to the 4th meeting and decides that Bob says, yeah to a lot of stuff, but then never does any of it.
Right.
And all of that stuff is stuff that we deal with in every day. It doesn't matter who you're, I'm currently doing some construction work, and I deal with lots of different peoples on lots of different levels. And it's nice to be in an organization that you don't have to worry about that. That if everybody's really following this methodology, you don't have to. You like the language. I like that I know that it's gotten, and that I don't have to think about Bob down the hall who doesn't answer emails or doesn't have this. We have a standard, and we have a thing that we teach and say as part of the methodology, here's what you need to do. And it makes it so your trust level for everybody in the organization goes way up. Outside the organization is always going to be as bad as it always is, but that's the rest of the world. I can't GTD the world. But in here, it's like being at home. You can be like, yeah, we all trust that we will do it. And that if you say someone, they'll capture it. And you're more than happy to call them out. We've seen it. Like, we're sitting with someone like, hey, oh yeah, I'll take that. And in our culture, if you don't see someone take out a pen, pad, cell phone thing and pop up, their tool of choice and start writing it down, you kind of look at them sideways and you're like, I don't see you capturing. And it's okay to do that because...
Yeah, we've made that an acceptable thing to say.
Right, because if you're not capturing, again, big concept of GTD, then the trust level goes away.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember back in the days of the company that shall not be named.
Never be named.
We had desktop computers, and we
it's
had.
So funny you just said desktop computers, like.
Yeah,
I know, as opposed to laptops.
That's right. They didn't move.
Yeah,
that's it. And we had pads and pens that we took to meetings.
Yes,
and you would try to capture like what it is that you needed to do coming out of the meeting, and if you needed to follow up with someone else, you'd try and kind of just capture that. And that was at like the very start of me trying to even do GTD. And I recall like one time, like someone was supposed to do something and it had been a week, and I had sent an email like, hey, just following up. Like, it wasn't worded like badly or whatever, but they were above me. They were
you talking about
like,
the incident?
They were like your boss.
Yes.
And
they were my boss.
And I had asked him if because he said he was going to do this thing, and like it was ultimately like my responsibility to get it done, but I needed him to do this thing.
Right.
And I asked him in an email if he did it a week later, and he called me and screamed at me on the phone.
Yeah.
Like, called me and screamed and yelled and berated me and told me that he doesn't report to me.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I report to someone who reports to him. Yep. How dare I send him an email like that just because he didn't do his work? And that doesn't happen.
Copy someone else on it though. Wasn't that the issue?
Everybody in the room. It was the people in the room.
You know what? What I really like about that story.
Yeah, but guess what? At Arkus,
yes.
Would I ever do that to somebody?
No.
Who reports to me? Who reports to someone who reports to me? I would never do that. I would never get on the phone and berate them for not following up on a thing that they said that they were going to do. Or if someone came to me and said, hey, Justin, you were supposed to do that.
Right.
It'd be like, my bad. You're right. I was supposed to do that. Let me get on that.
And it's totally different cultural thing.
But that's like learning through personal, like how you like to be treated as a human. That was like, man, all I did was like follow up on your ineptitude.
Pretty much.
You took that real personal, my man.
People don't like to be called out on it.
Well, guess what? We don't care.
I know. Well, we do. I mean, I will say I've had many situations, and that's the other thing is like GTD and I followed GTD back in that big company, and I would say it helped me then. So it's not like, don't think that, GTD only is good if everybody's doing it. I always say if no one else in the world is doing GTD, I might be the last person. but then I'll just capture all the waiting fors. Like, that's the beauty. What's nice about doing it internally is the less capturing internal. So like I think that's my biggest thing. Instead of having to say, paperwork from Justin waiting for, or partner who shall not be named to send over quote document.
I have so many waiting fors on partner who shall not be named.
I don't need them.
I have like 100.
I used to need to have a project for both of you, my two partners.
I have a project for partner who shall be remain nameless. It's called partner shall remain nameless, and there's like a million tasks in there.
Well, one of them would be listening to this episode, which he won't do. But anyway, I think it's a massive shift, and it's just really nice in the world. I think in this crazy world, so much going on, to have that trust level. It's difficult because it does mean you do have to practice it. You have to preach it. You can't call up someone and yell at them if they call you out. I've had employees who used to work for us were very happy to come to me and be like, "Hey, I sent you that thing at this time and you didn't respond with this period of time." And as the owner of the company, I couldn't call them up and yell at them. I had to say, "You're right. Okay, that slipped through. Things are going to slip through." But it's just having that trust and less slippage in the corporation makes it so much easier. And we go into corporations all the time, and organizations both, and your skin starts crawling because you can just see that this place needs some help, that they need more than anything some email management. They need some productivity tools. They need some ability to capture and stuff. So it's kind of difficult because when you
holding each other accountable, I mean, it's really what it boils down to. It's like everyone can say they're going to do all the things.
Yep.
You can say it all you want. I could say it till my face turns blue, but I've got to do the things, right? I can say I'm going to do them, but I then have to do them. And I think that's where it being a part of the culture, it's going to get done.
Right.
And if it doesn't, it's pretty apparent. It's glaring. It's like, whoa, that didn't happen.
Right.
What happened there?
Or what's nice, and I'll say last thing, then we'll close out this one, because we do this a lot, is that when someone's struggling with tasks or a process or something, I don't just say to them, "Hey, you're struggling, do this process, do it, do it next time or do it better." I can always say, "And how about you use that tool I gave you or we bought for you and that productivity and this concept?" And so I get to solve the problem of something not happening, not just with berating, but with a help and then a tip. It's like, how about you create a project to go in and review that document every 3 weeks? Because that way you'll have reviewed it and it won't, and then it'll pop up and you can use
you'll
this tool.
Ignore it. And that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother story. But anyway, I actually think it's been great. We've adopted more and more GTD. It's become, again, it used to be kind of like if, now it's...
Well, it used to be until we notice that you need it.
Right.
And now it's we're all going to do this.
And we talk about it in hiring practices. This is what we're going to do. And we've had people come to us and say, I'm excited to come work there because I either read the book or some people are practicing a little bit and they want to kind of get in more and they're excited to work at a company that's practicing it a lot. So, all right. Well, that'll wrap up the first, as we like to call, part 1 of the series. We'll keep going every week. We'll be back. We'll do another one. So until next week, this is Justin and Jason saying, enjoy those cloudy days.